Welcome to the pipeline math calculator, right? So we're going to use this Google Sheet to understand whether our current sales environment can actually realistically support our income or revenue goals. So we have two different scenarios here. One is purely commission sales, and the other one is for account executives or people who are already carrying quota. You may have a base salary. So we're going to do two different options here, but we're going to start with commission. So let's dive into it. Okay, so just to walk you through here, there's 5 cells that we need to fill out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you want information on what the cells are, you can look here, but it's quite simple. Just follow along in this tutorial. Also, I have dropped this Google Sheet down below. You can grab it yourself. Just make yourself a copy and you can use it. So first of all, let's go over this one here, active conversations. Now, an active conversation can come in many different forms. Let's take an example of a high-ticket closer. So an active conversation would be a call that's booked to your calendar. An active conversation could also be for insurance. If you're cold calling people, who gives you 20, 30 seconds of their time to listen to what you have to say, right? That's an active conversation. An active conversation could be if you're working in car sales, somebody who walks onto the lot and you have a discussion with them, right? There's a big difference between an active conversation and a qualified opportunity. So for this scenario, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on a high ticket closing. Okay. It's the simplest one to explain, just so you can get an understanding, but you can put your own numbers in here and make it really tailored to your situation. Let's say we have a closer and he or she is getting 40 calls booked to the calendar per month, right? Perfect. So 40 calls. Great. Now, we all know that with any type of sale, especially in high ticket sales, half of these calls might not even show up. Now, of those calls that show up, maybe, let's say you always get people, that don't know what you're doing. They're not even the right buyer. They're not, qualified whatsoever. They don't necessarily have the budget. They don't have the urgency, and they're not even looking to buy right now. They're just on the call. It happens all the time. Happens at a dealership when you walk out. Like I walk on a lot all the time just to look at cars. Doesn't mean I'm coming into the office to buy a car that day, right? So I'm not a qualified opportunity at that stage. So let's say half of them don't show up, and we'll say maybe 9 of them are completely unqualified, but we have 11 that are qualified opportunities. Now, let's say that our average deal size is $10,000. We'll say 10,000 for the sake of high ticket closing. That's perfect. And if we're fully on commission, we need to know what the revenue goal is of the company per month for us to hit our income targets. Now, if our income target is $10,000 per month, that's what we want as a high ticket closer. Could be higher, could be lower, whatever. We're going to stick with 10K right now. We need to make at least $100,000 in revenue, right? A 10% commission rate to even attain our personal goals. So we're going to put in 100,000 revenue. Now, one thing that's really interesting is a lot of high ticket closers or even commission-based sales reps, they talk about close rate. Close rate means nothing. It's just an abstract concept that's been built up in movies and stuff like that. It's not a real thing. A real thing is win rate. As you progress into the remote corporate sales space, we're going to be speaking about win rate. And win rate is essentially the amount of qualified opportunities that you have divided by how many deals you closed, right? That's your win rate. So a standard across, let's say, high ticket closing would be around a 30% win rate, not a close rate. Let's say win rate 30%. And that's also standard across most sales systems. So we can keep it like that. But just to explain everything one more time, active conversations, 40 calls booked on calendar. Of those opportunities, a lot of people didn't show, a lot of people unqualified. We have 11 qualified opportunities that we're discussing with on a monthly basis. Our win rate is 30%, right? So we're going to close 30% of these qualified opportunities. Our average deal size is $10,000 and our revenue goal is 100K. Let's have a look at what this gives us. Our current pipeline value, for instance, is $110,000. So that's so close to the 100K revenue target that it would essentially mean that you need to close all these opportunities to make your budget, to make your revenue target, right? Which is almost impossible to do, but it's a great thing to analyze upfront to see is it even possible based on the current situation, right? $110,000 pipeline value is much too low. If you have a 30% win rate, that means you're going to close around $33,000. We'll see below, but that's essentially what it means, right? So you're not even going to come close to hitting quota or hitting your revenue goal, right? You're going to be expecting to close 3.3 deals, which makes sense. You're 30% win rate for 11 qualified opportunities. That makes sense. Let's move on. So your expected revenue is going to be 3.3 times your average deal size, which is 10,000. So you're going to bring in, if you were going to sit down and actually forecast what you're going to do this month, you were going to bring in $33,000. We're not leaving this up to luck or chance or anything. It's literally math. So we know right now already that we have a $67,000 gap in revenue that we bring in to allow us to hit our income targets, which is not a viable situation for anyone to be in. We also know that we're 33% of the way there to hit that 10K income that we want, right? That we so desperately want. And that's fine. But we're only 33% there. So we know in this current situation, that's not going to happen. And the coolest thing and the craziest thing actually is to see 72% of your time is spent on unqualified conversations. And that's why everybody's banging their head against the wall, speaking to people that aren't qualified, wasting time and not making any money. That's like the biggest pain behind commission sales and sales in general. So we can see clearly that the system is actually promoting this type of outcome. Now let's have a look at what you actually have to do in order to hit your targets, right? To hit that 10K a month, you're going to need 34 qualified opportunities, 23 more than your current 11 that you have. You're going to need way more qualified opportunities in order to hit your revenue target. Now, that could be driven by ad spend, that could be driven by prospecting. Many things could drive that, but it's just good to see that based on what's currently happening, there's no chance. Second, you need to have at least $340,000 in your pipeline per month to close the amount that you want to do, right? Having 110 down here is not going to suffice. You're only going to hit 30% of that. That's not enough. You need 340,000 of pipeline. And that's why pipeline management is so important, which we're going to go through in the next phases. But just to see here that the amount of people you're talking to isn't even enough for you to make that money. No matter how good you are at closing, you can be God's gift to sales. It doesn't matter because your system's broken, right? In order for you to get qualified opportunities, you're going to have 124 calls booked on your calendar per month to even come close to 10K in income for yourself. So if you're getting 40, you need 124. So right away, you know there's not enough investment. If you're sitting there waiting for inbound, there's not enough investment in marketing to even promote 10K a month. They might say, oh, you got to close more, close more, close more. How are you going to close somebody who doesn't even want your product? How are you going to close somebody that doesn't have the budget to do that? You just can't. That's why you need to focus on win rates. And when you're evaluating your situation, focus on the win rates. And in this scenario, for you to even come close to 10K per month, you need 124 active conversations. So that's a discussion you'll have to have with your business owner or whatever to increase more ads. Now, if you're managing your pipeline and commission sales, for, let's say in insurance, that would mean you need to speak to more people. You need to call more people, right? That you can actually control that aspect. But if you're purely inbound, it's clearly broken and you won't be able to do anything with that. So that's something very important to identify early on. So by plugging in these numbers, you'll see right away that you don't have enough qualified opportunities or conversations to reach your revenue goal, right? Your current qualification rate, win rate, and deal size. You could sell higher value goods, like everything. All these metrics here, they all change. If you went from 10,000 to, let's say, a 30,000 offer, things are looking much better for you. You're going to be 99% of your way there, but you're not going to be there at 10K. You need to sell higher value products or get into an offer that sells higher value products. That's why I always say average contract size is super important for work-life balance. Right? Very, very important. So what to do next? You need to essentially increase qualified pipeline, and you need to move into a role with stronger demand generation and more consistent opportunity flow. Because if you sit there waiting for calls to come on your calendar, yeah, that's cool. You don't need to prospect, but you have zero control of your pipeline, which is going to kill your career. Because it's okay to make 30 grand one month, but it's not okay to make 6, 5, whatever, 3 the next month. Inconsistency will kill you. It will burn you out. And that's why it's so important to be operating in a system that will actually allow you to be successful, allow you to have consistent income in sales. That's the most important. You can learn every technique you want, closing, objection handling, whatever it may be. But if you're operating in a broken system, you will never make money. Now let's go on to individuals who are potentially carrying quota at the moment, who have a base salary, maybe it's a small one. And let's see if what they're doing is actually going to make their money too. Okay, so in this scenario, we're assuming that if you're quota carrying, that you do have some sort of base. But what we want to talk about is like on target earning, right? You want to know that if you sold exactly what the company told you to sell, that you would make a certain amount. That's what you want to know. And if it's even feasible. So we're going to put in a quota here. We're going to do it a bit backwards. 500,000 is like a small quota to carry. Good. Average deal size, we'll put 20K, which is mid-market. Again, let's do a 30% win rate, which is standard across mid-market and enterprise, 30%. Now, most base salary, let's say, offers come with some sort of prospecting, right? So you need to do some prospecting yourself. You'll have to have conversations every week. Now, let's say for something of 20K, we'll be doing around 10 conversations a week, 520 per year. Of those opportunities that we do speak with on a weekly basis, let's say 2 are qualified. So 2 times 365, 2 times 52, right? That's what we did before, 52 weeks in the year. So 104 are qualified. You have 20% rate. Win rate's 30%. Average deal size 20,000. Quota's 500. based on these metrics, you can see that actually you're going to make money, right? You're going to make at least the OTE that they said you were going to make. Your pipeline value is strong. You're at 2 million, whereas your quota is 500,000. Okay. So you're at 4x of a pipeline, which is very solid. You have enough ammunition there to close at some point to hit quota, which is good. You're going to close around 31 deals and you're expected to hit 624,000, right? Based on this math, at least you know that this is a viable opportunity, right? You know that your performance is going to be strong and you're going to make the money that they said you were going to make. So when you're evaluating an opportunity in the interview stage, or even just evaluating your current situation, you should know on any given day if you're going to actually make money, because inconsistent income is what kills sales careers, right? It's what kills momentum. Now, to give you an idea here, like these numbers can also change, right? Let's say like this was just a ballpark number, but let's say only 50 of these are qualified. Everything goes down and we start to be under quota, right? Or at risk. And that's important to know, because if you're only qualifying, 50 of these opportunities, it depends on the sale you're in and the industry you're in, right? But if you're only qualifying 50 of the 520, you're going to have to actually add more opportunities, right? You're going to have to get 84, which means that you're going to have 874 active conversations throughout the year. So there's a delta there of around 300. So you need to increase your prospecting, right? So it gives you an idea of what to do next, right? And do you want to do that? That's the point. And is it worth it for the OTE, maximum OTE that they're going to pay you? So have a look at this file, dig into it. If you have any questions, you can always ask us, but it's going to give you a great idea on how to evaluate your current situation. First and foremost, are you going to hit your income goals and revenue targets based on the system you are in? And it's going to also allow you to ask the right questions during the interview stage to ensure that when you do get an offer, that it's the right one for you to choose for a long, prosperous sales career where you're making money and not banging your head against the wall every single day. Good luck. Let me know.